Hi, everybody out there. We'd like to welcome you back to another program from Senior Solutions. It's Jim Collins and Joann Erenhouse. We are the co-hosts of programs that we love to share, giving you information and news regarding how to age successfully in Vermont. So today we are lucky enough to have a special guest. That is Annamarie Pluhar, who has written a book about sharing housing. And she wrote the book because she has lived the theory and does a lot of teaching and mentoring. So let's let her get started. But Annamarie, you want to tell everybody out there what your email address and or website would be?
Okay. The website is sharinghousing.com, and my address is connect@sharinghousing.com. We also have sharinghousing.org, which is the face of our nonprofit organization, which is Sharing Housing.
Wow, thank you. And well, Jim, go ahead.
I was a history teacher, so I like to see the history evolve. How did you, you're very talented with helping management solve problems within a structure, etc. I think in your background in divinity school, congratulations. My son did his master's at Harvard in divinity school. But I think you have some unique background that has come together about the sharing situation. So tell us a little bit about that background and how you're using it to be successful.
Okay. Yes, you are absolutely right that my background doing organization and consulting for management companies and factories, doing instructional design, developing training for organizations, a lot of them for the Department of Defense, and my background getting a master's in divinity from the Episcopal Divinity School. I graduated 40 years ago. So it's been a long time, and that education in Christianity and in religion was a tutoring about how important it is to live to stories and to take care of people. That who we are as people is to give and to receive on a daily basis. So that has been a thread all the way through. And I think that the sharing housing piece, I know it started for me because I had a friend once upon a time who was complaining about her finances over the phone to me. And I said, well, you have an asset, use it. And she said, what are you talking about? And I said, rent a room in your house. And she went, oh, I don't know how to do that. And I did something like, well, I do. And she went, oh, yeah, you do. Because at the time I was living in a 4-bedroom house that I owned in Silver Spring, Maryland, that I bought on purpose to live with housemates. I've always been very strange. I've never wanted to live alone. Like, I'm just countercultural. What can I say? But what we realized as I talked to my friend is that I had developed a process for selecting somebody to live with that made me feel safe and was efficient and effective. So I got off the phone with my friend and she said, will you consult me? And I went, aha, consulting. Maybe I could do this as a consultant. And so I got off the phone and I thought, wow, this is interesting. And I went looking for a book on the whole subject of how do you find a housemate and so on, and didn't find one. literally the next day I was sitting on a bus. I pulled out my laptop and I pounded out the outline for the book, which became Sharing Housing. Whoops, I should have it right in front of me. Sharing Housing, a guidebook for finding and keeping good housemates. And that outline completed in 2 hours, done, and it sat on my computer. And I sold the house in Silver Spring, and I moved to Vermont, and I was working as an instructional designer. And there was the famous day in my book when I was walking literally from the bedroom to the bathroom, and this little voice in my head said, "Are you ever going to do that project?" And I went, And I realized that it would be a deathbed regret if I didn't do it. And so I kind of went, okay, yeah, I'll do that project. And a little bit more story is that I was at a networking meeting within 2 days of that conversation with myself, and discovered 2 friends who were planning to write books. And all of a sudden I went, oh, I'm planning to write a book. And we built an accountability group. And that accountability group made it possible for me to finish the book, which it took about 3 years to write it. So it came out in 2011.
Nice.
And so it's been 11 years. And I will say, I mean, the faith piece of this is that I do believe that, as I say, the universe is asking me to do this work, that it is somehow a combination of my skills, my expertise, to encourage something that for many people is very strange. I simply want people to have the comfort and companionship and low costs of living in shared housing.
That's, I think that your motivation and some of the ideas that you're promoting, you started a long time ago, but I've noticed over the last, I would say 2 or 3 years, it's really gaining traction. There are now other people and organizations who are starting to make the same kinds of noises, because I think once we had COVID and people were forced to be alone, we have come to value and realize the importance of personal closeness and relationships.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. COVID's changed quite a lot. People
Yeah.
who formerly were like, I'm fine living alone, are now willing to say to me, I was lonely, or I am lonely.
well,
And I think
Annamarie,
that's good.
let me
Go
ask
ahead.
you a question. What are some of the barriers that people face that make them put off or not want to do a shared housing?
I think the very first barrier is the fear of having a bad housemate or a
Right.
nightmare housemate.
Right.
I think that's the first thing people, how do I get rid of a bad housemate? And I hear that. People ask me that question. I don't mean it to just be a sop, but I really do believe that if people do an adequate, complete job of selecting the person that they invite to come and live with them, they won't have a problem. Because every single bad housemate story I have heard, and I've heard a few, if the person can remember, it will be that they didn't even ask the questions they should have asked to get somebody in, or they will say, he seemed nice enough, or it was my niece, or, they're variations on the theme, but they don't take seriously the piece up between, you're a stranger and, oh, come live with me. There's got to be a lot of work done between those two places.
Is there a mutual contract signed in the process?
I would love, yes, absolutely. Now, my idea of a mutual contract is not the same thing as a legal lease. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not doing that part, but I absolutely, yes. So my take on this, my model, says that if people have clarity and agreement on aspects of living in their houses, they can live together.
That's right.
So
And-
do you give any kind of like guidance or ideas on how to set up like the financial arrangements or the boundaries and how to split household costs and household, I guess you say house and outside jobs?
People can ask me questions about it, but it's so situational. People are
Mhm.
really different, really
Right.
different. And part of what I'm trying to do that's different from a matching program, and we have a very good matching program in Burlington, Vermont, but it's not down here. I want people to make their own arrangements because we are all so different. We are just different. But I will go on to say that the housemate relationship is different from any other relationship you can have. So I've had people say, oh, nobody can live with me, and they're thinking about the fact that they had a bad marriage and it hurt and they got out of it. And then they're by themselves and they're happy that they're by themselves. And they've developed this concept that they can't live with, that nobody could live with them. But they've never lived with a housemate, which is an independent person. It's not a family member. It's not a lover. It's not a best friend. It's not a worker. It's not an employee. It's not an employer. It's different. It's that we have agreed for all of the benefits of living in shared housing, which I'll talk about in a minute, but we have agreed to live under a roof and have a home together.
And there's a lot of positives that will come out of that.
Absolutely.
You'll find you both have, oh, I love to cook. Oh, I love to cook. What kind of style do you cook? Is it French? Is it Asian?
Or as has happened to me, I have an interview on my website where I have lots of articles, and I have a category called Real People Sharing Housing. And there's one, an elderly woman I once met who came to one of my talks, and I'm like, why is she here? And she comes up to me afterwards and she said, I lived like that for 30 years and I never thought nothing of it. And so I interviewed her, and it turned out that there's a longer story here, but the short version is when she was invited to move into the house that she ended up living in for 30 years, the woman of the house said, you can come in, but not into my kitchen and not into my garden. And my friend said, fine, it was fine with me. She never really liked to cook anyway. So I think one of the things that I feel strongly about is that people can find compromises and matches that are particular. And the universe helps.
Good point.
Yeah. I'm curious, this is making me think, how do people look for or find, or who should they approach to be a person they want to share a house with? So
there's a lot to answer to that question, but this is my moment to say, we have launched a program we're calling SHIFT, Shared Housing Incentives for Taking Action. And so the first phase is learning what do you ask in an interview? What are you paying attention to? So when people sign up for SHIFT, which is for homeowners of Windham and Windsor County, they sign up on our website, they register, and then they get access immediately to our two mini courses. They're video lessons is the way to say it. One's called 5 Key Benefits of Shared Housing. What are they? That's the why. And anybody can take that class. That's always been free, always will be free. Sharing Housing 101, we charge money for, but people who sign up for this for SHIFT will get it for free. And so they can take these 2 video classes. And I've discovered when I say course, people think it's a college seminar. No, Sharing Housing 101 is all of 45 minutes long, broken into 11 lessons. And the idea, because it's online, you can, once you're signed in, you can go back and watch it as many times as you want to. So that's the first piece, is what is the process, in fact, for finding and keeping a good housemate? It's the same process I wrote about in the book, but it has to do with starting out and writing and figuring out who you are. What's important to you about how you live in your home? What's going to make you comfortable? What's going to make you uncomfortable? It's really interesting about home. It's different from a friend. It's different from doing volunteer activities at home. What's important to you? So then we ask people to write an announcement to articulate who they are and what they're looking for, what they're offering, what's the money, and then putting it out there. And I want people to write it down because it helps to articulate. It also makes it possible for, Joann, for you to get an announcement from somebody and send it on to somebody else. Oh, you might be interested in this. Because I have found, as I do this work, that it seems like the best housemate relationships develop out of friends of friends of friends of friends of friends. So you're building your network, and we're here in the small state, in these are 2 counties. Invariably, people are going to know people who know people, right? So the announcement is a very key piece. And one of the ways we're going to support people in Shift is by helping, once they take these 2 courses, mini courses, whatever I want to call them, is I will help people. They can send me a draft and I will make comments about it and may help them make it better. The other thing we're doing in Shift specifically is once people have taken the 2 courses, they are eligible for a free home consultation about how to make their home more comfortable for sharing. It's because it's interesting. Some things work, some places work better, but or could we work better if maybe a wall is put up or a door is moved or a bigger fridge is gotten, or an organizer is hired to help clear out a room, right? So we'll do that consult with a homeowner to help them think about how their house might need to change to make it comfortable for everybody to share. And then people have to go off and do it. That's the piece. I'm asking people to be grown-ups, to make their own decisions about who they want to talk to and follow through. We'll support people by being a sounding board, but we're not going to do matching. Okay. When they have a housemate, they can come back to us and we will witness their agreement. We will make sure there really is an agreement. And in signing that agreement, they're eligible for a $500 reimbursement for those changes they've made to their house. And in Vermont, the witnessing of their agreement means that they do not have to declare their housemate's income on their homestead declaration.
Good.
Isn't that interesting? There's a piece
Yeah.
of
Very interesting.
Yeah.
That was very interesting, because I was wondering what the tax implications would be for sharing a house.
Well, that's one of them. The other one is that it is income. And I'm talking to legislators about whether we can do something.
Okay, good. And let me just say, right before we got onto this nice interview, I saw the article that Chris Mays wrote in the Brattleboro Reform, or today.
Hey!
Yeah. So if anybody, would like to review what we're going over about the pilot program that you got through ARPA money.
Thank you, Senior Solutions.
Yeah, they can. A good plug for Senior Solutions, yes. And the article can kind of like go through the motions and explain this clearly, because sometimes when I'm watching things on TV or a webinar, I can't follow it all as quickly as people can say it.
That's
So
right.
that article will back it up. And if they go to your website, you have lots of good information. So
And
I
the
want to thank you
shift
for that.
sign up, I want to say that the shift sign up is sharinghousing.com/shift. And there's a whole description of the program with the sign up at the bottom of that page.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I think it's a very great effort and a good idea, because you're right. A great many of us that live in Vermont, we have big old houses. And when our families were with us or lived nearby, we utilized a lot of the square footage. But now, as you get older, you don't have that many people from your family living with you.
Yep,
So
and you use
I
less
like
and
to
less.
say, I think we were talking earlier and I said to Jim, yeah, a lot of people are not utilizing their square footage.
Right. Right. And there was an article in the New York Times 10 days ago, Sunday, talking about the number of solo agers who are coming down the pike and the boomers and so on. And it was one of the interesting pieces that I hadn't realized that was in the article, is that many older people are in 3 and 4 bedroom houses and they can't afford to move to smaller houses because smaller houses are more expensive than the house that they're in.
That's right.
So I want people to share. I really do.
Well, I think it's wonderful that you offer the mentoring support, whether it's through the SHIFT program, pilot program, through your book, which people can purchase online from Amazon.com, or it just, these kinds of web interviews and supports. So yeah, I think this is a great idea, and it'll work for people if they follow their head and not their heart.
Yes and yes. Okay, so I think the heart is an important place that also gives us an intuition about, whoops, this person's not right for me. And we need people to pay attention to that. And kind of going back to Jim's earlier question about my theological training, I realized that at the base of this, I have a fundamental belief that human beings are designed to love each other. And we have grown very far away from that in our current culture. But so I think people are afraid of their stranger. Oh, I can't have a stranger move in. But we forget that the dear friend started out as a stranger.
That's right.
And that went through stages. And so a housemate, a person who moves in initially, is going to be a housemate. It's going to be better than a stranger, if you follow my process. But what I hope develops, what I believe can develop, is this relationship I call home mate. And a home mate is someone who you like and respect, whose ways of living at home are compatible enough that everybody is comfortable.
Nice.
And I think that home mate relationship can be a wonderful source of belonging, of community, of help, mutual aid and help, of spontaneous interaction. I mean, we've gotten to such a place in the society. Where do you go to hang out? To just be with people. We don't have those middle spaces much. So I have this fundamental belief that if you're compatible enough, you are going to have a human connection that makes a difference in your life.
Yeah. You know what it reminds me a little bit of? Some of our volunteer visitor programs.
Yes.
Where the people, start out complete strangers.
Right.
And they end up really being best friends.
Exactly.
Nice. Well, if you could just give us, one kind of keystone message, what would it be?
Shared
think?
housing is a win-win for when you do it right. That's my keystone message.
Great.
Everybody wins.
And I guess if people give it a try, and if they run into a problem, they always can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. And I also want to say, and I realize I haven't put it on the website and I plan to, that signing up for the program doesn't obligate you to finish the program.
Okay.
That there, so people can sign up and get the free teaching and go, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, they might find out it doesn't really suit their lifestyle, or they go, oh no, I decide I'm better to do it before you get a housemate than after. Much
better. But they should learn. I mean, I think I'll be interested in getting feedback, because I think that I do get the feedback from people around the country that the model that I am proposing for what does it take to interview somebody effectively is in fact a roadmap, and most people don't have a roadmap in their head for how to do it. I mean, go ahead, Jim.
I think that's the key to the success of the program. Okay,
correct.
That if both people understand the process, right, and follow that process,
right,
then probably the majority of people that get involved, it becomes a successful experiment for them.
That is my hope and my belief and my intention, and it's why I'm spending all this time working on it. Absolutely.
I'm glad you're not very enthusiastic about it. No, you can see where your heart is. You certainly have the brain. It's the heart that will make it work.
Well, thank you for that. I really want it to work, and I want it to make a difference in people's lives. I want them to have...
it makes a lot of financial sense too. If it's one person supporting a house, all their money is going into that house pretty much, because most of our costs in life are associated with our homes. And it's much more efficient if you have more people maintaining, providing heat and other utilities. I mean, it just makes perfect financial sense.
That was going to be my next question. Do you recommend, when you first have somebody coming in, that you start with just one person? Or are you capable of having 3 people coming in? How do you suggest?
It depends. I think it depends. It depends on the person. It depends on the home, the layout, what works, what doesn't work. I mean, what doesn't work is to have 2 bedrooms with the beds against the same wall. Okay.
Yeah, especially if they're snoring.
Right. You got the point. This is why the home consultation, because I think sometimes people don't quite realize how they can configure their home to guarantee each person has the privacy that they want.
Right.
So that's one piece. And that's the other issue people raise is I'll lose my privacy. The question about 1, 2, or many, I realized that all my home share situations have been 3 people. And I like the 3 rather than the 2. Mm-hmm. I think it changes the dynamics significantly. And it's kind of, I don't know, it becomes fluid as opposed to one-on-one. So if people have space for 2, great, but if they don't have space for 2 comfortably, then 1 is fine, of course. The other thing that's true about this is, of course, if 2 people are living under a roof instead of in 2 separate places, there's now another dwelling available to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And as we cope with the housing crisis in the state, I think that it's we can kind of think about people sharing and then making other space available. It's kind of
That's
cool.
a good point. Nice.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is a terrific conversation to have. And, I've always admired what you were doing, pushing forward with this process and this theory and this program. And now you have a little bit of a stimulus for improvement and a way to motivate people to give it a try.
Give it a try.
They don't have to do it forever if they don't like it.
Right.
But if you don't try it, you'll never know.
Exactly right. Exactly right. We've seen is that, getting people to make the first effort is the big one. And then once people have started sharing, if one situation ends, they say, okay, who's next? And it becomes that kind of a thing. So,
Well, I super appreciate your taking the time to chat with us today.
you're welcome. I thank you for taking the time to chat with me and making it possible for people to hear more about our programs and what we're doing, because we'd really love to see people sign up for shifts and get started.
Great. Well, I wish you a lot of luck. And
Thank you,
I'm
too.
hoping,
Very enjoyable.
and we hope that a lot of people will find, some comfort and a little bit more financial security by starting to share with their home.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Thank you
Great.
so much.
All right. And now don't forget, Annamarie, you're going to send some slides.
I'm going to send a poster.
Okay.
I figured we have a cut there and then we're talking.
Yeah. They'll edit it for us so we can talk now. Oh, they'll just edit what I just said out. Let us say goodbye. Thank you and Jim, you and I will say goodbye. And thank Annamarie and thank everybody out there for listening to this important information. And we'll be back with more interviews at another time. In the meanwhile, start thinking about sharing your home. Okay, everybody, from Senior Solutions, Jim and me and Annamarie, have a wonderful week and we'll talk to you soon.
Have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you, Jim. Take care.